Hi, everybody, and welcome to what I deem the coronavirus isolation diaries. I'm out here hanging with my pup, putting up another episode for you, or vlog, as my buddy DJ Gooch would say. And, the intent of this was sort of because, I'd seen a bunch of these wealthy, influential people sort of give you things, tell you to stay home as they're sitting in their hot tubs or their, wonderful mansions. And, not all of us have those luxuries. So I've been sort of giving you ideas of stuff that I'm really into that are very cost effective, very affordable. In many cases, they're free, and they can help you bide your time while we ride the storm out, REO Speedwagon style, because it's very, very, very important that we do this. We have to flatten this curve. We don't know what entails, and it's imperative that we that we just use social distancing and we isolate and quarantine ourselves. So for today's episode, I'm going to talk about old time radio, or OTR, and a shout out to my buddy the Zimph, who about 40 years ago turned me on to old time radio, and I've been addicted ever since. And I like to listen to OTR when I go to bed. It's a great way to fall asleep. Most episodes are a half hour long, and I usually fall asleep after an episode and a half, so I usually have to, back up and re-listen to the episode I was listening to before. But it's usually a great way to zock yourself out, or, if you want to go for walks, again, make sure you're away from people. Just go for walks, go run, walk your dog, my little pupper right here. Those type of things. That's what they're perfect for. Now you could get, just Google OTR, old time radio, and a couple of websites that I really like. One's OTR.net. Another one, OTR Cat, is a one that I'm really a big fan of and got a lot of stuff from them. And I'm going to give you a couple of old time radio shows that I'm a big fan from, and these things go back 30s, 40s, 50s. And I'll tell you what, the comedy stuff is great. And the horror stuff I can't even listen to. It spooks the shit out of me, especially with those voices and all that other stuff. So you may dig them, and I'll give you some ideas. I'll give you one off the top. The Whistler. Whistler is kind of a horror thing, and the Whistler's premise is, this character's called the Whistler. He's the narrator. He goes, I am the Whistler, for I walk by night, and I know many strange stories. And what the Whistler does is really cool. Most of the stories involve somebody, thinking it up to no good. Maybe a guy is going to try to figure out a way to murder his wealthy wife so he can run off with the mistress, And as he's planning this diabolical plan, things go wrong. And as every time something goes wrong, the Whistler, like kind of our narrator Whistler, shows up, goes, so Billy, I guess that didn't go well. Somebody's watching. How are we going to do this now? And it's really cool. The Whistler's one of them. Another, Dragnet. Jack, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but of course the famous sergeant in Dragnet, and he actually did a small series called Pat Novak for Hire with Raymond Burr, if I remember correctly. Really intense, really cool. Another one, Philip Marlowe, Gerard Moore, one of the coolest voices ever. I'm talking to you, Screwball. Really good detective series. Rocky Jordan is a really cool one, where he's a guy. Rocky Jordan owns a club in Cairo, and he kind of has people passing through and kind of helps them with little issues as things go on, through his life. Let's see some other ones. Escape. Escape is really cool. Are you tired of your daily routine? We offer you Escape. And episode of Escape that really cave your head in is called A Shipment of Mute Fate. And it's about this Bushmaster snake. This guy is in charge to take this Bushmaster from, I believe Africa to a zoo in New York. And, the guy says the Bushmaster always watches you and waits for his moment. And what happens is, like snakes on a plane, only it's a deadly snake on a cruise ship. The Bushmaster gets out and everybody's freaked out, and it's a really cool episode. So Escape. Let's do some comedy. Fibber McGee and Molly. Jim Jordan and Marion, I can't think of her last name. They were actually a real husband and wife team. Really funny stuff. And what his little thing that he does is he does these alliteration type of sentences. Like he'll say, and it's amazing how he does it. Almost in every show he does something like say every word is in A or every word is in B or every word's in C or something like that. And he'll just rattle it off. It's amazing. I can't believe, And remember, they didn't have the digital editing and digital splicing. So that's a real human being rattling that off back in the day. So he practiced it. A lot of these people were old vaudeville, acts that went on to radio and eventually television. Another great act from that time is Jack Benny. And Jack Benny program is fantastic. A lot of great actors on that. I can't think of Phil was his band leader. I can't think of the last name. And Phil was the voice of Baloo the Bear and Thomas O'Malley from the Aristocrats. So those famous Disney cartoons that you grew up listening to or watching, and you still, got to get the bare necessities. That was good old Phil from the Jack Benny Show. And actually, Mel Blanc got his start on the Jack Benny Show, and that's where Bugs Bunny and a lot of those characters show up on. Inner Sanctum. Spooky as hell. Really spooky. And a companion set to that would be Lights Out, which is another sort of spooky program. Lights Out. And another one is Suspense. As another one of those real spooky programs that'll just spook the shit out of you. Off to comedy, Our Miss Brooks. That stars Eve Arden, and Gail Gordon plays the part of the principal. Eve Arden is a school teacher who's in love. She sort of lives in love with the science teacher, and they never can get it together. Eve Arden later on played the part of the principal in the movie Grease. And Gail Gordon always plays her long-suffering principal, and he's always screaming, at the top of his lungs, or he talks real quiet when he's just ready to blow a head gasket. So, another great comedy is The Great Gildersleeve. And he was a character on Fibber McGee and Molly who spun off to his own sort of episode, and he would laugh like, yeah, like that. It was always sort of a cackle. What other good shows are out there? Oh, The Black Museum. The Black Museum was actually Orson Welles narrated that. And actually, the other thing that he narrated, he played the part, which is Harry Lime. Famous movie called The Third Man. And that was so famous that they actually started a radio series on his character, Harry Lime, who is a ne'er-do-well. And the Black Museum is sort of like... I think it's in London, and it's a murder museum, and sort of Orson Welles goes through and narrates. He says, for example, this item here, this wonderful little hammer. What could have this been used for? And then they go back in the back history of that. The Saint, starring Vincent Price, which is really, really cool. Again, just like the TV show, but this was the old radio show, and Vincent Price voice is dope. I talked about The Whistler. X-1. Sci-fi. Really cool sci-fi. You'll really dig it. And then, let's see what else is there. Well, George Burns and Gracie Allen. And then I'm going to say this with a disclaimer here. It's funny as hell. But I understand why, if you're African American, you'd find it very offensive, and that would be Amos and Andy. It's every black stereotype on the planet, told by two white guys, who play these characters, Amos and Andy. Ironically, it's Amos and Kingfish. Andy and Kingfish are the main guys. Amos is sort of an ancillary character, and they speak in broken English, and they mispronounce words, and they say all sorts of, it is very racial, and I get it. And it's funny if you're not black, and you didn't realize the racial stereotypes. It's a pity. It's funny. But, you know, I'll say this. I have, you want to look at stuff for historical value, but I also get that you really want to, get rid of, look at this girl, little snoozer bear. Um, you want to get rid of stuff like that. It's painful. So I'll offer this truce to, not a truce, I'll give an offer to the African American community as a rebuttal. I think you guys should create a comedy series called Amos and Andrea. And they'll be a couple of prosperity preachers. You could base Amos on that Kenneth bonehead that flies around in his airplane all the time. He needed God to give him an airplane because he didn't want to be on the in that canister of sin. And if you want to see what a possessed bonehead that clown is, just watch that uh, uh, Entertainment Tonight, I believe, interview he does where he just starts talking and praying. And then for the female, for Andrea, you can make his wife. You can base her on Paula White, and that fraud, and you can have her speak in tongues and all sorts of stuff. So, create a comedy series. It's on the house right here, Amos and Andrea, and see how well white people like it. But I guarantee you, I'll be the number one subscriber to that show. So, Amos and Andy, yes, awfully racist. And it's humorous if it wasn't so damn racist. Um, Skipping forward to the 70s, I'll leave you with this final one. The CBS Radio Mystery Theater started in 1975 and ended, I think, in 81 or 82. The original host was E.G. Marshall, and then later on Tammy Grimes became the host of the show. And it's a 45 to 50-minute show. So it's got better production than the 30s, 40s, 50s episodes had, but it's still it found a lot of the old actors from back in the day to come back on these shows. Marion Seldes, who was actually the voice of the possessed demon in The Exorcist, is on there. Norman Rose, who's got this beautiful mellifluous voice, he plays a lot of characters. I'm trying to think of the guy that was played. He's on there as well too. He played Woody Allen's sidekick in Annie Hall. Max, I'm telling you, Max. I had twins, Max. And then the other one was. Sam. I'm thinking his name was Sam. Great voice. He played a lot of villains in the older shows, and he usually plays a villain in a lot of these episodes. They're just a lot of wonderful voices. And in these episodes, like I say, they're a little bit longer. Sometimes they redo some of the classics. Other times they do, modern stories. And it just was, some of them are comedy, some of them are, mystery or murder or something like that. Sometimes they do some Sherlock Holmes episodes, that type of stuff. So it's a mixed bag of all different types of stories. And that's the CBS Radio Mystery Theater, and I've been going through that for about 3 or 4 years now. There's over 1,000 episodes, and my goal in life is before I drop dead to hear every episode that they created. So, that being said, my pup Aspen and I would like to wish you bon voyage. We'd like you to stay safe, stay home. If you have to go out, go out, take what you need, and then come back. Shopping or go to the stores, help or to the restaurants, support these local businesses. They're struggling. Go out for walks, walk the pup, walk yourself, go running out in the park. Stay away from others. And, hey man, by Crom, we'll beat this. So, until next time, peace everybody.